guess so.
Make sure it's still. Sometimes I do that. It reacts to it. Keep that in if you want to.
I can what?
You can keep that in if you want to. You don't have to spit it out.
Oh, good. Put another one in.
We got no rules on this show. Just to have fun.
Well, you need to start doing them at like 6 o'clock at night then.
I do.
With drinks.
I do. That's when I normally do it.
Really?
Yeah. Chris sent me a thing, said you could do it this morning, and I was like, shit, okay. I don't normally do them in the mornings, but okay.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, the 5:30 in the morning podcasts are definitely not as entertaining as the 6.
Who the hell does that?
Did one with Aaron Schneider Kafaro. It was like 5:30 in the morning.
That's an eager beaver, isn't it?
Yeah, right. You know you're important when you're getting the 5:30 in the morning invite.
Right.
Right.
You're an hour ahead of me. You're on Mountain Time, right?
Mountain Time, yeah.
Yeah. So it's 10:30 my time.
Where are you sitting at? What's the nearest town?
Murfreesboro is where I live, and it's just outside of Nashville, Tennessee.
Yeah.
About
What
30 minutes.
Town.
What's that?
I said, what a great town.
Nash Vegas?
Nash Vegas, man. Nash Vegas.
Telling you. It's booming, man. When was the last time you were here? NRA?
No, I think I was there in the fall of 2019 before COVID hit.
Oh, okay. So recently. Pretty recent.
Yeah, it's pretty recent. But I was stationed at Fort Campbell, Kentucky for a number of years. And so, you know, Nashville was a place to go.
Yeah, it's like, what, 40 minutes away? Something like that?
Yeah.
Less than an hour?
Yeah. Fort Campbell, Kentucky.
Yeah. Up there close to Clarksville.
Yep. I loved it because if you were active duty, you could hunt as a resident in Tennessee. You could hunt as a resident in Kentucky, right? So you're able to get resident buck tags, but then you could also hunt on Fort Campbell. So all in, you could legally, you know, go harvest I think it was like 6 or 7 bucks.
Oh, wow. They allow that many up there?
That was kind of a benefit. When you were home and
dual state, you could get the Kentucky limit and you could get the Tennessee limit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nice.
If you were ever home during hunting season.
That's true.
I was stationed there when 9/11 hit, when 9/11 happened, and then shortly thereafter, we deployed to Afghanistan. So I had a lot of time at Fort Campbell, but a lot of it was obviously disrupted once that kicked off.
Yeah.
But what a great community, great town, great area.
Well, it used to be. Nashville used to be great until all the libtards started moving in, taking over.
You have no idea, dude. Boise is like exploded.
Nashville has.
Seattle, Portland. You know, we're the first fallback into the mountain fortress of the Rockies, in a completely red state. So not everybody that's coming is a libtard. There's a lot of police, a lot of first responders, a lot of firefighters, but the majority of them are. And I used to count California license plates from my house to the office. And it used to be when they moved to Idaho, that was like a prerequisite. Like there was some sort of like website that was out there, something said what to do, you know, when you move to Idaho. And the first one was to change your license plates. And we're past that now. We've like completely, like, they don't give two shits and they'll just keep them on until they need to be updated. So it's disturbing.
I just had some new neighbors move in next to me, and I was kind of excited about it. And I was mowing my yard, and they were moving in, and I saw their tags, and it said California. So I just turned around my mower. It's just, so I kind of want to fill them out first. Let's see how this goes.
Yeah. Well, they're refugees, right? They moved here for a reason, and so they need to be reminded not to be too quick to turn these places back into what they were running from.
You know, and that's the problem, is they come here and they inundate areas like, you know, Free America, Nashville, Austin was that way at one point, you know, and then it completely turned libtard. And that's what's happened in Nashville. And they come here and they want all the benefits and live the great life that we have, but yet they still want to vote the same way and bring those ways back over here. It just ruins it.
That's a mentality and a philosophy on many things that becomes the issue. So you know that Idaho and the Northwest in general, Nashville, I mean, the entire United States, I mean, Western lifestyle is a big thing, but we have this giant rodeo here. It's called the Snake River Stampede. It's one of the biggest in the Northwest. Real big PRCA rodeo. It's indoors at the Idaho Center. It's badass.
I would love to go to rodeo. I've never been to a big one.
Yeah, you have to do it. But back into this discussion about California, they didn't have the rodeo last year, but the year before, this was already starting, the trickle in. And so the announcer's on a horse, he's got a mic, and he asks the entire stadium in between events, hey, how many people are here from California? And literally half of the stadium stood up. And it's just like daunting, because you're sitting there as an Idaho resident, native. Actually, my wife and I are both fourth generation, and it's just kind of like surreal, like, oh wow, you know. And then he goes into this little banter and he says, well, hey, just remember why you moved here, kind of like what you and I are talking about, you know. And the clown, he's like, hey, he jumps in, right, and he goes, hey, have you heard about the Californian and the guy from Tennessee and the guy from Idaho that are sitting at a bar? And the announcer's like, no, I haven't. And he goes, well, the guy from California is sitting at the end of the bar, and he's drinking wine out of a wine glass, and he drinks his wine, and he gets all done, and he throws the glass up in the air, and he pulls his pistol out, and he shoots the glass, and he says, we have so much wine in California that we never, ever drink from the same glass twice. Well, the guy from Tennessee sitting there drinking bourbon, he's watching this whole thing, and he's about half down, so he slams the rest of his bourbon back. He throws his glass up in the air, pulls his pistol out, he shoots it. He goes, we have so much bourbon in Tennessee that we never drink from the same glass twice either. So the guy from Idaho is sitting at the end, and he's drinking a Coors in a glass mug, and he finishes it off. He stands up, he throws the glass up in the air, he pulls his pistol out, and he shoots the Californian. He says, we have so many Californians in Idaho, we never drink with the same one twice. And the place just erupts. It was like the funniest joke I've ever heard. And I think he made that up on the fly.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious.
It was hilarious. But yeah, in light of everything else that's happened and the whole wokeness and the whole anti-police bullshit, a lot of these people that are moving out have the right idea. They want to get away from these sanctioned cities and, you know, all this nonsense. But they do carry some concern, you know what I mean?
They do, yeah. But, you know, it's like you said, we've got to educate them and remind them, just keep reminding them why they're here, why they came here.
I think that they should be required to live in these new areas for 10 years, then they can vote.
Before they can vote? That's a pretty good idea.
Like if I was the governor of Idaho, I would try to get that implemented.
Yeah, but do you ever think that something like that would pass? I mean, it's a great idea. I mean, at least a year to 2 years they need to live somewhere. Definitely. Especially if they're coming from a different culture like that. It's like coming from a different country.
It is. That's what I was saying. They're like refugees.
Yeah.
Coming in, right? And You know that last year there was more hunting licenses sold in the state of Idaho. That's like a new record. I'm sure it was all over, but there was a combination of a couple things. One, people were shitting their pants last spring when they went to the supermarket and they could only buy one steak, right? So there's this resurrection in self-reliance and self-sustainment, right? Like, hey, I remember my dad or grandpa or uncle used to go, kill a deer or an elk and fill the freezer. So that was one aspect of it. The second aspect of it was that people couldn't travel and they couldn't go on these big elaborate vacations, and so they had pent up, demand. They wanted to get out, and that was a part of it. But the point with it is I got an associate here in Eagle, Idaho, who does meat processing for people when they shoot their elk or deer. And a lot of guys don't want to mess with that, and they don't do it themselves, so they drop them off. They pay this guy couple $100, and he cuts their stuff up. Well, he gets checked, and the Fish and Game come in and they make sure all their shit's dressed, and the paperwork's correct, and they've done everything correctly,
Yeah.
Well, he was telling me Fish and Game came in and was talking to him, and they had this, like, they were turning work away, right? I mean, there was so many people out that were filling their freezers, which is great. But a lot of these guys had moved into Idaho. It's the first time they'd really been out hunting. Yeah. And the Fish and Game told them that they had confiscated 4 moose that had elk tags on them. And I'm like, wow.
I didn't know the difference between a moose and an elk.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny, but it's not, because that's what you're dealing with. And these over-the-counter areas out here in Idaho now are, in my opinion, we're at a breaking point where they're going to have to go to all draw type hunts because the density of the hunters is overwhelming.
Yeah. They should start putting a picture of the game on their license and say, this is what you're supposed to shoot.
Threat ID cards.
Right.
Flip them out: elk, deer, moose, circle.
That should be part of their license. They get
ID. Here's another great California hunting related deal. So we were doing a photo shoot in the foothills in Boise, and it was totally staged. Sometimes brands do this. We had some new product we needed to get shots on. So we brought in a bunch of props. A lot of them we have around our office, and we had this giant moose rack. It's a 72-inch Alaskan moose. It's a freaking absolute pig. And it was in the back of the truck. And our trucks are all Crypteked out. They're badass. They've got logos and stuff all over them. So it's pretty easy to figure out, whose truck it belongs to. But we go up in the foothills. We're doing this photo shoot. And the office calls and says, hey, Fish and Game was just here. And I'm like, oh, that's no big deal. They come in all the time. And he's like, yeah, but they got a report that you guys had poached a moose in the foothills of Boise. An Alaskan bull moose, 72 inches. We have Shiras moose here, which, like, a huge moose is like giant would be 50.
Yeah.
And I guess that when he came in, the Fish and Game guy had to fill out the paperwork and do everything, and he was laughing about it. And he's like, yeah, it was definitely a Californian that called in. And I was like, they had told my office girls that, Yeah. And I'm like, oh my goodness, wow. So it is
the elk police.
We got them for sure.
Well, I mean, they got to look out. You got to look out for theirs. That's a funny story. I like that. You shipped in a big old moose for the shoot. That's awesome.
We had him here. I mean, it was a moose that I'd taken in Alaska when I lived up there for 7 years. So it was just a last minute deal to throw in, but we were being turned in for poaching.
We have started recording, Butch. We're recording. So I got all that on there. So if there's anything on there you don't want me to record, tell me now and I'll edit it out in post. But
no,
that was a great way to start the show.
Nice.
So, Leadheads, we are back with another episode of the Talking Lead podcast. This is episode something or another, 400 and something. I don't know which one it'll be. But the voice that you heard is a blast from the past. About 2 years ago, We met Butch at the Buck Knives booth for SHOT Show, the 2019 SHOT Show, when they used to have that. You remember that show they used to have?
Yeah, I do remember it.
In Las Vegas. It was a great time. All the outdoor industry got together and communed with one another.
It's going to be interesting to see what happens going forward if the National Shooting Sports Foundation doesn't pivot out of Nashville. I have a concern that with the local policies that the governor's recently passed there, which is you can go to football games, you go to Golden Knight hockey games, but you have to have proof of vaccination. That's going to be the same requirement for all trade shows, including SHOT Show. And in my opinion, within this industry, that's probably not going to go over as well as it might, say, in I don't know, another industry.
Shouldn't go over with anybody, because that's bullshit.
100%. Yeah. So anyway, I got a small bet on this that between now and this what's going to happen with SHOT Show. I personally think it's going to be very difficult to, one, stay in Vegas if that is in place, if at all, because of that requirement alone.
Well, it's just you got to see how it's going to play out everywhere. You know, on a national, federal level, what they get squeaked through. But as long as these states can stick together and hold their own, like Florida, Tennessee, Texas, and it's up in the air, man. I don't know. It's a scary time because we never thought that it would get this far. You know, we placated to these liberal leftist, Marxist socialists for so long. We give them a little bit here, a little bit there, where they've taken enough to where they can actually start, actually implementing their crazy ideas now, and we're seeing it firsthand. We're living it.
And it's one thing right now when you have a requirement to go to a game or go to something and you're showing on your phone, here's my proof, to some, checker that doesn't really give two shits, right? It's another thing though when they're going to say, well, you have to upload your credentials 2 weeks prior, and it's a echelon above just, kind of nonchalantly, flashing it.
Registrations, the national registration process, where you're going to go into a system, you're going to be registered, you're going to be in a database, and it's Marxism, man. It's ridiculous.
100%. So
a little bit of that in Nashville. Like I said, the Nashville is a lot more liberal than it used to be, and the mayor there is definitely far left. And the governor, thank goodness we got a good balance there, where whenever the mayor of Nashville tries to do something, the governor will make a state law to prevent him from doing his madness. Thank goodness. But each individual business, it's their own personal decision on how they want to handle things. And we were trying to go to just a concert the other night at one of these little, backroom bars. I mean, it wasn't a huge deal or anything like that, but they were requiring that you have your show vax card.
Yeah.
We're like, what? You gotta be shitting me. We were just in 4 other places that, it wasn't even mentioned, wasn't even thought of.
Yeah.
Like your next door business right next to you. That's where we were at. But then we go to this one, it's like crazy.
Well, there's a lot of channels out on that with quote unquote counterfeit, credentials on that stuff. But again, it's only gonna last. It's a blip in this life cycle of this situation that we're in.
Yeah, with the counterfeit ID, I mean, that's just it's human nature. Anytime you got something that's legal and required, there's going to be people that skirt that and ways around it. And that they're doing it with the vax cards now, which, I think the government and people are starting to see that. So they're going to take it one step further to where it's not just going to be this card that you fill out yourself.
Right.
It's going to be a national database.
Yeah.
Chips, man, chips.
Wow.
I think that's what these vaccines are all about, man. They're injecting little microchips in us.
I don't know if it's to that level yet, but it will be. I think that's one of the wayheads to where it's a part of the identification. So back to the point of the matter, if that's a requirement for SHOT Show 2022,
Yeah.
I mean, 99% of the folks that are at that event are like-minded, right?
Yeah.
So that's where the rubber comes off the tire at that point.
That comes down to the venue too, doesn't it? The individual venue too, not just the state. Even if the state didn't do it and the venue required it, then then you're still subject to it.
Good point. Yeah.
And I think that's probably the issue with Vegas and it's the hotels. But yeah, I won't go. I definitely won't go if they require vaccination proof or whatever.
Yeah. Well, the National Rodeo's final NFR will be the other one. They pivoted out last year and went to Texas, to Fort Worth, and it's supposed to come back this year, but that'll be another one that'll be contentious as well. Yeah. It'll all just depend on the venue and the show and the mentality of the individuals that are attending, that type of thing. But
I don't think Nashville's big enough to host a SHOT Show.
Man, you're right. That's the thing, is Vegas has got all the casino hotels, which is, heads and beds type thing, and then just the venue itself. So
yeah,
tough one. But yeah, that's the last time you and I were together, was the last SHOT Show.
That's right. Butch Whiting with Cryptek is my guest this episode, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know if you noticed, I made a post on social media last night letting everybody know that you're going to be on, and we got some questions to field. We're going to do that toward the end of the show.
Sweet.
But we're talking hunting right now, and that's kind of why I wanted to have you on. We got a great backstory of Cryptek and the history of Cryptek in that episode that we did at SHOT Show. So if you guys want to go back to that episode, it is episode number 285. That was back in February 19th of 2019. Did that interview, and our interview starts somewhere around 20 minutes into that. So if you lead heads want to go back, but just to kind of, for our new listeners and people who aren't familiar with Cryptek, which I don't know why they wouldn't be, just kind of give a little bit about Cryptek, who you guys are and what you do. For
the 30-second elevator pitch.
Yeah. Let's go back to the other episode and get the details.
Well, Cryptek, our slogan's battlefield to backcountry. We're a bunch of former soldiers with numerous combat deployments that absolutely love to hunt. And the brand was built around the idea of spiraling, improvements in apparel, features and functions out of and off the battlefield into the civilian hunting market. And we have camouflage patterns that were developed specifically for the U.S. military, tested extensively by the DoD, selectively used by Spec Ops. We're the only camouflage that's in the civilian hunting market that's been extensively tested by the U.S. government. We have programs that we still do with U.S. Navy Special Warfare and Army Special Warfare Tier 1 elements, and also Coalition Spec Ops. And then also in the meantime, we are extremely, I guess, significant in the hunting industry. So truly authentic, very, very authentic, and we have an enormous amount of credibility just with how we've come about. And I think that's the quick elevator pitch.
That's a good pitch right there. Now, I think one thing that we didn't cover during that interview at SHOT Show was how you came up with the pattern itself, which is something that I'm curious about. And that may be one of our listener questions, but yeah, I'm curious as to that.
Well, the original camouflage patterns, the macro and the micro pattern, were inspired by camouflage netting. And the reason why netting was the inspiration was because based off of our personal combat experience, camouflage netting was by far the most effective passive concealment measure on the battlefield next to a ghillie suit. Ghillie suit's super cumbersome, super hard to, duplicate. They're heavy when they get wet. They're hot. They're just kind of difficult to use. But the camo netting, when those hexagons in the netting get stretched out and the fabric's woven in and out, they have a three-dimensional aspect. So our inspiration was to take that three-dimensional aspect and put it on a flat two-dimensional surface. And that's where the camouflage originated from. And truth be told, camo netting goes all the way back to World War II and been around forever. We just basically wanted to take the same visual acquisition properties and principles that were into the netting and put it onto a two-dimensional aspect in apparel. And that's what originally started the camouflage. Our new line of camo patterns called Obscura is actually an interesting inspiration. So there was a coalition conventional military force that reached out to us from Europe that said, hey, we want to get this camo. And they had a picture and it was very similar to that icon you have right there. There were some guys shooting some mortars out of a mortar pit, and they were wearing Cryptek, and the camo netting was behind them, and the sun was coming through and cast a shadow onto the Cryptek gear that they were wearing. And so we were like, wow, well that's a really interesting aspect. So we started to go into development. We really leaned back on the tiger stripe camo and pulled a bunch of information and data and testing that had occurred with that, which is a very effective and popular camo pattern over decades of use. And that's where the Obscura line was developed and inspired out of. So in both cases, we have camo netting, and then we have camo netting on top of camo netting.
So you just added another layer of
right. You did.
Twofold, now it's threefold.
Yeah, in the Obscura line, the original family of Cryptek camouflage actually becomes the micro pattern, which is it's set in the background. Yeah. So you have to actually take a close look at it to say, oh well, that's Cryptek. I recognize that.
Yeah, I'm noticing on the Obscura is you've got these darker lines in it, a little thicker, a little darker. And it actually, on the original family of camouflage, Highlander, Mandrake, and Nomad, we started the acquisition testing at 300 meters because that's the max effective range of a 5.56. The Obscura line actually carries out further on. What you're looking for is that your camouflage doesn't blob or become one solid piece at further distances, which is really important when you're going against near peer competitors, right? Especially ones that are well trained. So yeah, it's super effective. We've brought three right now. There's Cryptek in-house has three variants. The transitional variant, which is the one that our new line is out in. We've also got a black variant called Nox, Obscura Nox, which there's some more tans in that. The last SEMA, before all the shows got shut down, there was actually a Ford that was in the Ford booth that was wrapped in Obscura Nox, and it won a bunch of awards for appearance and so on. So the Nox is kind of a darker blackish.
Yes.
It's got some tan hues in there too.
Yeah, it's super similar to Typhon, which is Cryptek Typhon's one of our top patterns, especially in the firearms industry for decorating. And so Nox is a variant of that. There's no real true functionality with black camo, especially under NVGs, night vision goggles, and in the infrared and shortwave infrared. But these black camos are very appealing on, lifestyle aspects. And then if you get into, tier 1 law enforcement, counter-terrorist organizations as well, it does provide IFF, identify friend or foe, still, I guess, in that aspect. But for the most part, when guys are wearing Typhon uniforms, or in this case, it would be a Nox uniform, they're looking for the psychological aspect of when they kick a door in or they fast rope in off a helo, the bad guys are shitting themselves just because there's a psychological aspect to that.
With the advent and use of infrared, does this have some sort of infrared attributes as well?
It all depends on how it's printed. So all of the military grade tactical gear that we have is wet printed. And if it's wet printed, if you look at that through a set of NVGs, or if you look at it on a trail camera is a good example, it will still be grayscale camouflage. If you go in with the hunting gear that we have, which is done with heat transfer paper, then you'll look like Gumby the glow stick. So it's super important when you're talking. U.S. military is extremely hypersensitive to infrared and shortwave infrared. Law enforcement, not so much, and then hunting, not at all. But to answer your question more deeply, even if you have wet printed Obscura Nox or wet printed Typhon in those uniforms, just when you're dealing with black in general, it's very difficult. It's a very difficult colorway to work with in the infrared and shortwave infrared spectrums. So when you see SWAT teams running around with NVGs on, if they were going against near peer and they're wearing all black uniform, that's actually the worst color you could wear underneath NVGs.
Yeah. And the reason I asked that, when you were talking about friend or foe identification, they've got other means that they do that with anyway, when they're using their night vision and infrared.
Yeah, and the newest, biggest push is in thermal, and so forward-looking infrared is another concealment concern now that's definitely applicable on various equipment, and some of those technologies and the pigments that are used in those paints are being spiraled into pigments to be used in dyes be used in uniforms. So that's the new concern, is your heat signature. The other one I saw as you were looking around on there was Obscura Transitional, and the input on, or not Transitional, Grom. That snow pattern is super, super badass. And that actually was inspired by the Grom from Poland and feedback that we had got from testing that they had done on our overwhites that were in our original snow camo, which is Yeti/Wraith. We had to change the name of it because Yeti sued us, Yeti coolers.
Are you serious?
Straight up, man. Not even a warning, not even a shot across the bow. Just like, we're suing you.
They didn't even, that term's been around for thousands of years?
Yeah, dude. Well, check this out. It's even deeper than that. So one of my business partners is friends with one of the founders of Yeti. And when we named that camo pattern Yeti, we got his permission. He's like, yeah, no problem. We're doing coolers. You guys are doing camo. Fast forward, group comes in, acquires the company. He becomes kind of more silent, out enjoying life, whatever. And the legal counsel shoots the lawsuit. So anyway, yeah, Yeti sued us, and we had to change the name of Cryptek Yeti to something else, Wraith.
The Wraith. Yeah.
But,
Here's the.
but
I like
but
Wraith. That's a good name.
yeah, it is a good name. In hindsight, though, it's a little close to Raid, Cryptek Raid. We didn't think that through too well.
Raid.
We have another pattern called Raid. So,
Yeah, I knew that, but I'm not confusing the two. I mean, one's grayish. This one's kind of bluish grayish. Would you say?
it's more, that picture doesn't do it justice, but it's extremely effective. And this is the only snow camo pattern that's ever been used by both U.S. Navy Special Warfare and Army Special Warfare at the exact same time. And it's also been extensively tested.
The Wraith.
The Wraith, yes.
Okay.
That's one of our top selling items is our overwhites globally. And that's where that was tested by the Polish Grom. And then that's how we now have the variant Obscura Grom, which has a lot more greens in it.
Yeah. I
So,
liked it.
yeah.
But
when you and I last met in 2019, we were just launching Obscura, and now, yeah. And
that's what you were going to show me if I came by the booth, because you're like, hey, come by the booth. We've got something that we can show you. We don't have it out, but I'll show it to you.
Yeah, exactly.
And of course, I never got away from the booth. So,
well, we were a whole 50 yards away from the Buck Knives booth, so maybe not even 25. So
you know how far, how long it takes to go, 10 feet at SHOT Show.
100%. I for years wanted them to have a pisser put in my booth, a private pisser that was like one of the meeting rooms, so I didn't have to walk.
Oh man, I hated going to taking bathroom breaks because it's like an hour, because you stop and you see everybody and you talk, and of course just the crowds itself just trying to get through.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, for guys that haven't been there, that joke saying, well, yeah, you're a whole 50 meters away from our booth and you couldn't make it over. It's a true factual, you have to have been there and be there to really appreciate that comment.
Yeah. But I do miss the conventions. I know you don't. You're not a big convention guy anyway. But I do miss them because I just miss seeing everybody. Like seeing you in person, and then of course, you guys had the best party ever of anybody, the Cryptek party. Everybody always looked forward to that. That's something I want to talk to you about. Also, was that last party?
Yeah.
You had Frank Stallone playing at the Cryptek party. Now, for you listeners who don't know who Frank Stallone is, yes, he is the brother of Sylvester Stallone, arguably 10 times more talented. I don't think there's any arguing about it. He is 10 times more talented than Sylvester Stallone. He's an actor. He's a musician. What else does he do? He does all kinds of stuff.
He's just an interesting person as well.
Yeah.
But
there's some kind of documentary on Netflix or something about him. It's pretty cool.
The Cryptek parties are pretty interesting because it's a true merger of this battlefield to backcountry. If you go to our party, there's going to be all these individuals and elements that are from, organizations that don't exist except in Tom Clancy books. And then you've also got these industry leaders in the outdoor hunting industry. And then you've got, key players that are touching both sides, i.e., like Nosler ammo, or Hornady ammo and that type of thing. But it is Cryptek is really a brand where, where everybody that is a SHOT Show mentality type person, outdoor industry type person, we touch, whereas some of our competitors are isolated on one side of the spectrum. We really, as a brand, pierce that veil across, the shooting sports, law enforcement, military, and hunting. And that's kind
And
of a
just regular Joe Schmo who, like you said, you guys, it's a lifestyle brand now
right.
that just enjoys your apparel and wearing your pattern.
Yeah, there's a lot of education that comes with that. When we have folks that are Cryptek fans and their only exposure to Cryptek has been through how they decorate their guys on Call of Duty Black Ops or Call of Duty Advanced Warfare, and they've never, held a real gun in their life, and they're wondering why on your social media, why would you kill a bear? And you can't be like, what are you shitting me? Get out of here. You got to be like, well, there's a conservation aspect. We always draw back into the conservation aspect and self-reliance, self-sustainment, that type of thing. But that lifestyle piece, we talked about that on that previous podcast. That still is, a mind-blowing deal, and it never fails me to be like, wow. Like, I'll show you one that would be of interest that ties back into your list stuff. We recently just did this deal with Taser, and they put the Taser in Cryptek Altitude, which is one of our more premium collections. The Altitude collection is it's Scholler fabric out of Switzerland. It's printed in Germany. It's super, super high end. But yeah, you can get a Cryptek.
Get a Taser with the Cryptek Altitude.
Right. I mean, and then you load the cartridge and it shoots out the darts. And
what was their reasoning in wanting to put a camo on the Taser?
Lifestyle.
Just lifestyle. That's because it's cool. Catches people's eye.
That's the aspect of it, right? I mean, it's just kind of interesting. It's the same thing with why would somebody want to put, in Cryptek camo or any camo for that matter on their knife, on their pocket knife. I personally want bright orange, fluorescent orange knives and knife handles and lanyards so that when I drop that bitch in the dark, I gotta find it. So
I think that's going to lead to one of our listener questions. We'll get to that when we get to the listener questions. I think I remember seeing one of those. But with the camo itself, the Cryptek, you're talking about how it, it's bridging a lot of different lifestyles and bringing, the outdoor industry is tight knit as it is anyway. The firearms industry is kind of tight knit as it is anyway. But even within it, as you got any kind of organization, you're going to have your own little cliques, like you're talking about that break off and do their own thing. And then, like you said, with that party, that's what, brings me back to the party that you guys have. It's just seeing all the different, people that were there, the different mix of people that you wouldn't normally see at maybe one of the other companies' events, because they are, they're more cliquish kind of thing. Where at yours, it's just, everybody was there, from like the shooting competition shooters, hunters, the elites, like you said, the military elites that wear the button-up Magnum PI shirts to to musicians. I mean, there were musicians there. Gosh, I mean, I can't. It was just so. There were so many people there, and everybody was having a good time. Everybody was getting along. The food was amazing. The music was hot, and the people were rocking. It was a great time.
It really is, I guess, a testament for somebody that has the, I guess, wherewithal and situational awareness that you have to come in and recognize that, because that's the brand. That is the piercing of the veil from the battlefield to the backcountry. And, when you got these pipe bangers, sitting around with the Eastmans from Wyoming and their cowboy hats, and they're finding all this common ground, and, you see the mentality that we all share, whether you're super hyper hunting focused or you're getting ready to go on your next deployment to go, turn bad guys into dirt. So the one thing that's interesting that you sparked a thought on there as you were kind of talking through these, call it clicks, is that's a occurring situation right now for sure within my specific hunting industry, is that some of the other camo options and what they stand for, I won't say that they're woke, but they're woke, you know.
Yeah.
And so the mentality is more of a, you know, tree hugging type, I guess, maybe didn't vote for the right president groups that have formed and shaped. And whereas our customer base is definitely on the far, far right. You know, we had the 90 million folks that voted for Trump, or the 90 million folks that are going to buy Cryptek and wear it. And we went through I mean, it's been the interesting scenario with what's occurred here over not even the last year yet, but close to, along those lines. The political aspect and the censorship that's occurred just on the Cryptek side, and social media platforms, and what you would want to say and how you'd say it and then what you stand up, and even if it's just interpretive, if we didn't do anything. I mean, we've been censored by the Communist Party of Zuckerberg, and, you know, had to pivot and had to change how we've done things. And it's because of, you know, those groups that basically gravitate to our brand. And
right. And it frustrates me to no end that they do it. But again, you know, and it's going to come down to, are these guys public utilities, or are they, you know, private companies? And, you know, that's how they want to run their company.
yeah,
you know, it's gotten to the point now where you know, by design, it's like a drug dealer. You know, they give you a little taste, a little sample, get you hooked on it, until they've become this just huge thing that people rely on now, just like your telephone or the internet. You know,
well, from a company perspective, a brand perspective, it's super powerful to be able to measure your marketing spend against the results. So you get this return on ad spend, and that's what you're talking about. That's like the crack. If I buy and place print ads and am out there just collecting impressions, there's no real way to measure that. But if you're able to post a digital ad on a major platform, and you can see, well, this cost me X number of dollars, but I generated, you know, 10 times that or 15 times that, that's the crack, right? So then when you get censored, I feel super bad for the gun companies, because they've been experiencing this forever, right? You can't just put a gun or even an ammo ad on these platforms. We got our ad accounts completely hammered, turned off after the insurrection on Jan 6, because the guy that's jumping over the seat with the flex cuffs, he's called the flex cuff guy, or the zip tie guy. If you look closely at him, he's wearing Cryptek Typhon combat uniform. And so all of our accounts were shut down. Boom, knocked down.
Because you were wearing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I wonder, you know, I mean, I've heard, well, what happened to the guys that were wearing Wrangler, or the guys that were wearing Carhartt or Nike, you know,
or Polo,
all of that, right?
Yeah.
So
Ralph Lauren. What about the Ralph Lauren people? Come on.
Yeah, I'll tell you, there's a whole plethora of stories that leads into this. You'll find interesting, since we kind of started to put our head down this rabbit hole. The first thing that occurred was last fall. We were subpoenaed by the FBI, and they wanted to know how many of these types of hats we had sold that were in Cryptek Highlander, and it had the Chris Kyle Punisher logo on it, for one, and it had some other nomenclature. Well, we looked at this hat, and we sell blank hats to anybody that wants to buy them, and then they can put their logo on them, and that's super popular. I mean, all the gun brands that have Cryptek camoed hat with their name, whether it's
not to mention the counterfeit at knockoffs.
That too, yeah. So we looked at it, we replied back to the FBI and said, hey, look, this is a blank program. We sell a blank cat, then they're decorated. Well, what was happening was during that time, you had all of this Black Lives Matter rallies and protests, and they were tearing down the statues. And these local militias were going out and basically standing protection over statues and various other things. Well, a lot of these guys were wearing these hats, and that's where that came from. All right. So we get through that. The second
So
thing
they're trying to identify the people
starting to
the purchase of the hat.
Right. Exactly. So the second thing was the zip tie guy and the insurrection, and 2 months of us getting completely hammered. We're off Instagram, we're off Facebook. We can't do any paid ads. That's nice because you can see your return on ad spend, which I mentioned. The third one, I get a phone call from my VP of sales. He said, hey, I just got off the phone with AFES, Army Air Force Exchange System, and we are required to buy back all of our t-shirts, hats, hoodies, and beanies that have our logo on that with Roman numeral 3 in it. And yeah, so listen to this. So I'm like, what the fuck are you guys talking about? So I start to get more information. I have some follow-up phone calls. So when the Cryptek brand was formed, and you look at some of our art, there's Roman numeral 3 in it. And we put that in there, that stood for 3 focus areas. We had 3 focus areas we wanted to build our business model on. The first one was Cryptek apparel, regardless of camo or non-Cryptek apparel. Second one was Cryptek camouflage technologies, which we spent some time talking about, and that's a major part of our business model. And then the third one was Cryptek adventures, which was us going out and hunting and basically, you know, just in the outdoors and storytelling and, you know, that type of thing. At one point we had an aspiration to do like super cool things, but anyway, that was why the Roman numeral 3 was there. Well, as you know, there was a movement that started around 2010, 11, about the same time Cryptek started. And yeah, 3%ers, and 3% of the Americans stood up and fought against the Patriots and had a lot of momentum. And 3% was identified with guys that are pro-Constitution and pro-Second Amendment and pro-Pledge of Allegiance and pro-stand-up and national anthem. And long story short with that is this spring now, Roman numeral 3 is domestic terrorism. And so
oh my gosh.
I lost my noodles on that. Started to look more into it. If you go to, I think it's the Southern Poverty Law Institute, they track all domestic violence and, you know, terrorist groups. Well, they've now got listed every single militia by every single state in the United States. And from what I saw, pretty much every state has Roman numeral 3 of Tennessee, Roman numeral 3 of Idaho. There's 3%ers of Idaho, 3%ers, every state's got that. So that association and that symbolism that was built into our logo, now apparently, you know, us former combat veterans that fought our nation's battles were domestic terrorists too. And so Roman numeral 3 is not a good thing. So that was another.
It's like 1776. The social media police or whatever, anything that had 1776, because that's who makes our shirts. The shirt I'm wearing, our logoed stuff, 1776 United. They shut them down. They banned them. You couldn't hashtag it. You couldn't do anything just because 1776 United. You know, because you know that's when the American Revolution.
Yeah, if you have 1776 and Roman numeral 3, you're a real bad
Oh,
person.
you're like top of the watch list, man. No fly list right there, baby. Automatic.
So here's my final like culmination in a number of just mind-blowing events. A couple weeks ago, this is super recent. my customer service gets a phone call. They're asking about, you know, Roman numeral 3 to the guys, this and that, back and forth. I'm looking at, well, there's a police officer in Bend, Oregon. You can find this on the internet. He was under investigation because he had a Cryptek patch, number one. That's the reason why we were involved in it. A Cryptek freaking patch that he got at a law enforcement shooting event in Vegas, actually. He had a keychain that said Mona Lobe, come and get it.
Mm-hmm.
And then he had I think he had a notebook that said on the outside, people to kill. And when they investigated this whole thing and looked in the notebook, it was actually his dope book that he kept track of all of his range time. So his atmospheric conditions, so on and so forth. And he literally came under the scrutiny of and went under a formal investigation for being an extremist because he had a Cryptek patch and a Mona Lobe keychain.
Yeah. So this is the story I've got up for you guys watching the video. OPB.org article. It says investigation clears Bend police corporal of alleged ties to extremism. So it sounds like you got cleared.
Yeah.
Corporal Josh Spano faced 10 alleged policy violations, all deemed unfounded. Still, the investigation has led to proposed changes in the department around social media. Some of the allegations against Spano stemmed from personal items and social media posts featuring imagery associated with the anti-government militia movement. Police supervisor, which is the 3%ers that you're talking about, they think that's anti-government.
Right.
Police supervisors decided those references were coincidental to Spano's military background.
Well,
it's funny because all this stuff comes from, the majority of this stuff comes from military.
Right. And so if you continue down on there, I'll talk about Cryptek, which is it has some blurb, says something about like commonly used by militias or something along those lines. But
it's talking about the Moen Labe here. He's also got tattooed on his leg. Statue of Liberty holding a pistol and silencer. That's a decent tattoo.
Looks like he got it in the garage.
Let's say, yeah. Let's see, Cryptek. Spano showed. There's the Roman numeral 3 right here. One patch includes the Roman numeral 3, a symbol popularized by militia groups. The notebook cover reads, and of course they're going to call any of these groups militia groups.
Mm-hmm. There it is. One. Cryptek merchandise is frequently branded by 3% militias. That's the last paragraph on that page you got up there.
Says, as the Roman numeral Spano said, he was unaware of a link to militia culture until recently. He told blah, 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 Cryptek, and that they, let's see, he got the patch from an owner of a company that makes it, Cryptek. Did you give that to him?
I personally didn't give it to him.
That makes Cryptek. And that they met at a police training in Nevada. Cryptek is a clothing brand that markets outdoor gear with a military aesthetic. At the time, Spano worked for the Medford Police Department. It says the owner of Cryptek also wanted to get in contact with Medford SWAT team to see if they could have a business deal for jackets. Cryptek merchandise is frequently branded by 3%er militias, according to Mark whoever, an expert on extremism for the Anti-Defamation League, who pointed to several examples online, including one from a Washington state militia. So,
yeah,
guilty by association, huh?
Well, I guess guilty by mentality, more so than not.
Right.
I mean, we're super pro law enforcement. We're super pro Constitution. We're super pro military. We're super pro everything American. And back into where this came from, that's the association of the Cryptek brand that we're not going to get off of. It's built into the fiber of who we are. And apparently, you know, yeah, now that makes us and classifies us as, oh, well, they're bad. They obviously were behind this insurrection because this one guy that's got more, you know, exposure than anybody else was wearing Cryptek Typhon uniforms, which, by the way, we looked up and we didn't even have a record of selling it to him. He got it from some third-party retail. Neither here nor there. I don't care if he did buy it from us.
Yeah.
The end state is that, you know, the Communist Party of Zuckerberg and this whole woke bullshit nonsense in this administration that we've found ourselves in is disgusting. You know, spent numerous years in Afghanistan and Iraq, and to see this withdrawal that Biden and his woke generals, they should be court-martialed. It's just, you know, in general, that's who we are, Lefty. It's who we are, and talking like who we are. So if that makes us extremists, then I guess, you know, it is. I've
been an extremist my entire life. My family from generations have been extremists. Then, you know, it's just
yeah. God,
it's a shame that you can't speak up, and have the freedom of speech. Like you said, I mean, we're being censored, and it's going way deeper than just individual companies, you know, from Facebook and whatnot. The entire internet has become censored. If you try to do certain searches on things, they have wiped them out completely, and you can't go and you can't find the information. It's getting really Chinese-ish, I guess.
100%.
It's
100%.
We have to continue. You can't let them squash out our voices. You know, we have to be heard. You have to continue to be heard. I was watching Instagram. What's the guy with a patch that's in Congress? Former Navy SEAL.
I know who you're talking about. His name's too.
Dan Crenshaw.
That's it.
He had gotten up, and I haven't watched it yet, but he got up and he had voiced his opinion about how, I guess, disgusted he is with the Biden administration and you know, everything that they've done since they've been in office, and especially Afghanistan, of that whole debacle. And when he got done, the Speaker of the House said, if we could please refrain ourselves from basically saying bad things about the president. I mean, it is ridiculous. So I mean, they're even squashing our representatives and who are our voices in the government. You know, they're squashing them now. It's getting really bad.
The censorship, once you start down that rabbit hole, it's only
it's snowballing. Yeah.
Bigger and deeper. You know that Biden recently came through Idaho on the way to California to go ensure Newsom stayed in office, and he stopped in Boise because the headquarters for all the wildland firefighting is located here in Boise. And there was this super significant turnout that was basically protesting Biden. I mean, there was thousands of people. Never saw any of it on the news, none of it at all. But what did come out was that when he was at this press conference, they started to ask some questions. He came off script, and they unplugged his mic. And our Senator Risch basically said, "Who has the authority to shut off the president's mic? I want to know." And you know what'll come out of that discussion, yet to be determined. But
well, there was another one that they did the other day, where they had some foreign dignitary that was speaking, and the press corps just came in, just shut the whole thing down and made everybody leave. What was that all about? Did you hear about that?
I heard about it, but I didn't observe it or see which one that was. But
I heard it on the radio. I was coming back from the farm, building a deer blind. So let's get out of this politic bullshit out of the way. Let's talk hunting and conservation, man, because you guys are big proponents of conservation, and you support a lot of great organizations that go along and help with nature conservation.
Yeah.
And that's due to your upbringing and your background. You grew up hunting. You've raised your children hunting, 2 girls, close to early 20s now.
Yep.
Getting late teens, early 20s. So your whole family, you guys have been involved with it. And I wish Josh would join us sometime. Cleghorn, the other owner, Cryptek, and would love to meet him. Haven't met him yet. But talk about your passion for hunting, and then obviously the conservation and the bad rap that hunters, that get all the time, where we're the actual reason for all these nature conservations and whatnot.
Well, when it comes to the conservation aspect, the Pittman-Robertson Act is a huge benefit back into our local fish and game chapters. And so every time we buy a firearm and or ammo, and now it's been extended even to archery products and some fishing products, that a significant percentage of that goes back into conservation and into fish and game. And when you have these other groups that claim to be super passionate but are very anti-hunting, they're a drop in the bucket compared to what actual sportsmen and actual people that are shooting and out in the woods are contributing back into that. And ultimately, our involvement is pretty broad, like you stated. I mean, we're heavily involved with a number of groups: Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, Mule Deer Foundation, Safari Classics International, Dallas Safari Club, programs with Ducks Unlimited, and so on. And ultimately, that's about preserving this opportunities and these cultures that we're super passionate about for our children and our grandchildren and their grandchildren. Hunting is a significant part of how I was raised. It was the catalyst that allowed my family to come together, and it was the highlight of our year. And it was all inclusive, from the time we went out and harvested, an animal or a deer or elk, through the processing of it to loading it into the freezer. And then this whole other cycle starts after that, is, when my wife would send my daughters to the freezer to go get a pack of meat or hamburger or whatever, and then they go back into the cooking and the preparation and so on. So it's truly a very, very significant part of who we are as people. We are super passionate about filling our freezers, being the only folks that have handled, this organic protein and that type of thing's a segue that you can throw in there. But the truth about it is, it's also a lot of fun. It's super fun. Like, to go out and
being outdoors is fun. Yeah.
Yeah. So, at the end of the day, that's why Cryptek exists. When we were deployed and we were missing those hunting seasons and we were missing those opening days and missing time away from our family and friends, it was about daydreaming about, how could we, develop a brand, develop a company that would support our life and our families, and still we could do what we enjoyed, which was to be, immersed out in the wilderness. So super important part, and we do give a lot back to various conservation groups, and then also the educational aspect of it is a big deal. Like I mentioned before, there's a lot of folks that the barrier to entry, they might be intimidated, or they might not understand how to do something, or they want to learn, but they don't know how to go about it. And so, it's a pretty broad spectrum, actually, who we interact with, because we do get a lot of folks that just weren't fortunate enough to grow up living a good life in the back 40 or the back country.
Yeah, and it seems to be fewer and fewer as we progress. as a country too. But it's organizations like this, you know, the education is key. And I'm noticing here that the Coastal Conservation Association,
Right.
They specialize in educating. Great. Found the Mule Deer. You mentioned them, Mule Deer Foundation, another great organization. We've had CJ Buck on the show, and we've talked about several different the Boone and Crockett organization. Talked about them and all that they do, education programs that they have. You know, it's things like that when you've got people that move into an area like Idaho, like Tennessee. I mean, even California, they have hunting in California too. It's just not as prevalent in as in our areas. But I think that needs to be key, is the education on the hunters' conservation and how it started. And, you know, hunters are the reason that we have, you know, these great organizations, that we have these parks, these beautiful places of nature that still exist. It's because of hunters, and it's because whether it's voluntary or not, the government has imposed these taxes on firearms and outdoor companies, that these taxes go directly to, like you said, wildlife and fisheries.
I'm not positive on the history behind that tax, but I want to say that the gun companies were actually the ones that went and said, let's set this up and let's do this.
I think it was, but I think it was you said it was Pittman
Robinson. Yeah. You know, and then the whole North American conservation business model. I mean, unless you live in Europe, or you go to Europe and hunt, or you go any place and hunt, you can't really appreciate the idea of being able just to go out onto public land and go hunting, because in other countries you can't do that. Mm-hmm. And Theodore Roosevelt actually had the foresight to set, you know, a lot of this in motion. Mm-hmm. And when the smoke clears, the United States of America is extremely unique when it comes to the outdoor hunting opportunities that are afforded to every individual citizen. That is not the case elsewhere. And so as Americans, we have a we're very blessed on a lot of fronts, but the ability to just, you know, go out and go harvest some wildlife is significantly different. And the Pittman Robinson definitely provides a major backstop for funding.
Sure.
And when you have, you know, you get into a pissing match with some vegan, you know, Sierra Club member, you got to be able to slow down and explain some of these finer details. And I personally think that a lot of people that are in our industry don't really know and recognize, you know, how significant the outdoorsman and the shooting community's contribution is back into conservation. Mm-hmm. And so if they really were able to grasp that, I mean, it's powerful. I mean,
so here's the overview of the Pittman-Robertson Act. Took over a pre-existing 11% excise tax on firearms and ammunition. Instead of going into the U.S. Treasury as it had done in the past, the money generated by the tax is instead given to the Secretary of the Interior to distribute to the states. The Secretary determines how much to give to each state based on a formula that takes into account both the area of the state and its number of licensed hunters.
Right. So if you have a state that's selling 10 million hunting licenses a year, compared to another state that's selling 1 million, mm-hmm. the one that's selling the more tags based off of that formula they use will get more money put in.
More of that 11% excise tax just on firearms and ammunition.
Right.
It's just the firearms and ammunition companies that are getting this tax. And then that tax is now going, and it may, like you said, it may have been the firearms industry that said, hey, why don't you take that money that you're taxing us and, you know, put it towards something good and put it into that. Like I said, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
They may have lobbied for that, which was genius.
Well, nobody likes taxes,
No.
but this one actually is pretty damn significant with regards to conservation and fish and game departments.
Yeah, and what it is these anti-gunners don't realize this, and if they were to get their way, and we were to do away with the firearms and the ammunition,
100%.
Billions. That's billions of dollars that's been
is.
going toward their tree hugging rights and freedoms that they're going to lose. And where's that money going to come from now? Not them, because they're not giving anything other than just their squeaky wheels.
It's a very good argument, 100%.
I just don't see why people don't use that more when they're combating these people. Maybe they don't want them to know it exists. I don't know, because then they try after it.
A few years ago, I was asked to sit on this panel for the National Governors Association, and the title was Economic Growth in the Outdoor Industry. And the panel lead was, at that time, Governor Hickenlooper from Colorado, he's a pretty liberal. But they also had the CEO of REI that was coming in. So I think what happened was NSSF saw the CEO of REI, and so they went and found the most counter 180 yin yang they could find and asked me to come in and sit with him. But what had just occurred right before that was that REI was boycotting several brands that were owned by I believe ATK or no Vista, by Vista Group.
Vista, yeah, it was the Vista.
And it was like Camelback.
Was there the that school shooting? What was it?
The school shooting.
Yeah, I think that's what sparked their whole.
Well, they had acquired Savage Arms. Yeah. So now they had Savage, but REI was selling these other brands within the REI stores, and they basically said, well, we're not going to carry those brands. We're not going to carry.
Camelback, one of them.
Bell Helmets was one, and it was all because they had acquired this gun company. The point with it was that I had this super elaborate, super crazy, awesome platform I was getting ready to roll in on, and I got a phone call from an executive within the NRA and said, hey, don't pick this fight. And I had to rewrite my speech and all my talking points on the plane. It was a disaster. My daughter watched it on C-SPAN, and I'm really critical of my girls, and they're very, very good communicators. And my oldest daughter's like, I've never heard you say so many times. You would kill me. And I'm like, well, I had to rewrite the entire deal on the plane, on the way there, because I got shunned, told not to take it on. But the point is back into that, Pittman Robinson discussion, organizations that are super left, they think they're into conservation. They think that they have everything figured out. They don't even have a clue about this, how much, gun owners, ammo, by all that money, how much goes back into actual conservation and preservation, and all the secondary and tertiary effects. Like when you go do a program, they do a guzzler, let's say for sheep country, or they do an improvement for mule deer, or they're investing money in there. There's all these secondary effects and third effects for other species and the environment in general. And if you were to eliminate those programs, I can't even imagine, the detriment overall that these anti-hunting, anti-gun, tree-hugging organizations.
Research for CWD, chronic wasting disease,
Yeah. You know what's crazy on conservation? You bring up CWD. I was at an event here a few weeks ago talking with a local fish and game biologist. Do you know that white-tailed deer can carry COVID-19?
I'm not surprised.
True story. True story. Yeah.
Can they?
They
Can
did
they
the study. I got the official study. I'll send it to you. So
they can transmit it to humans?
they just have tested a bunch of whitetail, and they are carrying COVID-19.
See, that makes me wonder. Maybe they've had it all along. They just never tested for it before.
Hey, I'm telling you right now, if whitetail deer get COVID-19 and they can lose their sense of smell, I'm all about that.
There's going to be a rash outbreak on the wildlife population for COVID-19. They're going to re-engineer one.
Some big bucks killed this year down there in around Nashville and other places that have a lot of cases.
Wouldn't that be something? Somebody takes it, re-engineers it to where it just affects wildlife's noses. They can't smell anymore. Yeah,
those dead downwind guys are, they're thinking that way right now. If we can just get that one side effect, we'll have the leg up finally.
And then all the predators are going to eat them all, and then we're not going to have any.
Well, if you have a host,
there's always cause and effect,
Yeah, when he told me this, we were sitting at this event, and I was like, "You're full of shit, man." And he's like, "No, I got the study. It's all official. I'll send it to you."
Crazy.
And you have to think about, like, okay, so we've got these hosts, these animal hosts. In this case, something that is true near and dear. Number one big game animal hunted in North America. What are the second order effects on that? But more so than not, like, hey, you got to go. We got to eradicate, get vaccinated, all this bullshit. But yet you've got all these animal hosts, and these new strains are coming out. What's gonna,
supposedly bats or something, right? I mean,
that's a cover story in my opinion, but yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
So, anyway, whitetail.
They must legitimately be able to carry it. So obviously, wildlife can carry it also.
Yeah.
And transmit it.
100%. 100%. You know that whitetail hunters, there's more whitetail hunters than anything else in the United States. And especially down in that area where you're at, you guys got some freaking.
Because there's more of them.
There is.
Yeah, they're like rats.
Well, it's a lot easier to hunt, right? I mean, the barrier to entry for whitetail hunting is not anywhere near as significant as some of our other big game species. And when you've got a 40-acre parcel and you can put a stand and a feeder and some cameras up, and can walk from your backyard to your stand, I mean, that's convenient. The other thing too that I like about whitetail, and I grew up in the West. I grew up hunting mule deer and elk. I was introduced to whitetail hunting when I went into the military. I'd never hunted out of a tree stand. And one of my very best friends that I went through flight school with, we served together in Korea and Afghanistan and other places. He grew up in New Hampshire, and all he knew was whitetail deer stand hunting. But he was my mentor, my senior mentor. But one of the things that I really enjoyed was, it's almost I won't say a year long, but it's a long process where guys are going out and they're putting the time in, they're finding their stands, they're putting tree camera or game cameras up, in some cases
hubs and areas where they're traveling. Yeah,
it's you get a lot of scouting time in there, and it's usually more convenient than out west where the animals migrate, and to get into some of the places you hunt is very difficult. So yeah, that is a fun part about the whitetail aspect of it. And you have the urban hunting too. I mean, you have whitetail downtown freaking Nashville and all the big metropolitans back east,
Oh yeah, they're everywhere. They're everywhere around here.
Yeah. And it's also really good meat. Whitetail's excellent.
Yeah, it's very good. And that's what I've been prepping for the last few months. And I was telling you, I was at my farm. We're building some stands out there. Got about 100 acres or so. And it's like you said, it's very convenient to have, smaller plots of land to where you can go out and if you want to call it hunting, some people don't call tree stand hunting. It's more harvesting. You're just harvesting. You know, there's not really a lot of hunt involved with it, but
It's different. It's definitely different than Western, but I consider it hunting for sure.
And have to walk 2 miles to pack your meat out. You know, it's kind of nice.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. The whitetail aspect was a saving grace. We know when you're stationed at Fort Rucker, Alabama, Fort Campbell, Kentucky, Fort Leavenworth, Kansas, you know, all these eastern places, and you don't have the time to take off and run back to, you know, home, Idaho or Wyoming, Montana. You know, the ability to get out on an evening hunt or a morning hunt, I mean, it's a luxury for sure. So yeah. I enjoyed it a lot. I killed more.
What are your thoughts on suppressor hunting?
Love it. The only problem with hunting with a suppressor is the gun wants to rotate off your shoulder. I've hunted a lot with a suppressed, and it adds an awkward balance to the gun, and you're constantly fighting that son of a bitch, especially when you're pack hunting and you're hitting, you know, high terrain. So you got to have some sort of, you know, aftermarket that you can strap that sling to your pack if that's what you're using. But it's a super luxury with, especially if you're hunting with camera guys and, you know, people are around you from a hearing conservation perspective. It doesn't have anything to do at all with, like, you know, Hollywood, and doesn't make any noise. But the big advantages are recoil management and acoustic signature from a hearing conservation perspective. So I personally am all about it.
And the reason I ask is because in Tennessee and other states, it's illegal to hunt with a suppressor. And I've never understood why. Why not?
Because whoever made those rules didn't understand, you know, truly understand the inherent value of what a suppressor.
The same reason they charge $200 tax stamp and they make it very difficult as hell to get one just for normal use.
Yeah, it's something. When you go hunting in New Zealand, you walk into a sporting goods store and you can buy a suppressor off the shelf just like you would, you know, buying some ammo from Walmart.
Yeah.
And everybody's running suppressed. Everyone. Every single New Zealand guy that's hunting is running a suppressor. There's a lot of states where it's completely legal, like Idaho, Colorado, Texas. I mean,
that's why I go to the States to do some of my hunting. But I just never have understood it. I don't know why. It's just an antiquated, old, stupid law that, because like you said, somebody had a misconception about it that didn't know anything about them to begin with, didn't know anything about guns.
Right.
Let's just do this.
James Bond movies set the precedence for their decision making. You know, when it's not like you're shooting a Walther KK-22 pistol suppressed that you just hear the action go. I mean, you're shooting a hunting rifle, you know. And there's major advantages. The disadvantages, another one is like the handling of the suppressed rifle in and out. You know, I don't think there is a really good gun case to slip your gun into and throw in the truck. And if you're running and gunning and you're hunting from your truck and glass, and now you got this, you know, extra 8-inch long gun sticking out of the back of your gun case. But for the most part, those are
technology today. They're easily on and off.
Yeah, the quick tees, the quick detachments, for sure.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. If they would just think about all the people would put more R&D into them and making them smaller, and just build them into rifles instead of making it. They just build it in. You'd have it integrally suppressed, and you see some companies that are doing that now. Atlas Defense does that. Keltec with their carbine, their 9mm sub 2000. They've got an integrally suppressed version of that now.
Yeah, I've got it.
Some companies.
I've got an internally suppressed Gemtech upper on a Nemo lower. That's our basically our ranch gun, our farm gun. It sits loaded
Nemo
door, and my daughters and my wife and anybody else can grab that thing. And we've got it because we've got predators, we've got badgers. I've shot a couple badgers off my dog's throats before, but you know, it is nice that internally suppressed because you maintain the size for sure.
Yeah.
With them, but I'm all about hunting suppressed there, but there is some disadvantages just on the ergonomics of the weapon.
You mentioned Nemo Arms, sponsors of the Talking Lead podcast.
No shit.
My sponsor plug. Yeah.
Well, they're just down the road, right here in Boise, Idaho.
Oh, very cool. We'll have to tell them Lefty said hey.
I'll do it. I'll say hi.
Got a lot of great companies there in Idaho. There's you guys. There's Nemo Arms.
Yeah.
You've got one of our sponsors, Occam Defense Solutions. Have you ever met Brian Keeney at Occam Defense?
I've met him in passing.
Okay.
I haven't.
Great dude. Extremely smart.
Yeah. You've got, on to piggyback on that, you got Primary Weapon Systems. You've got Taxol. You got MGM Firearms, Lone Wolf Firearms, Seekins, Lewiston.
Seekins, they were there.
We got CCI and the whole federal ammo manufacturing up in Lewiston. I mean, Idaho is as red as the states come, and probably one of the gun friendliest states. And I have heard that there's more guns per capita in this belt, you know, the Treasure Valley belt and Magic Valley belt, kind of right here, more guns per capita than anywhere else in the world. Now, don't hold me to that. One of your listeners will, but I have heard that rumor. And based off my buddies, I venture to say it's probably true.
Yeah.
So we
Somebody do argue with you.
They do. That's the Texas guys that argue with me. But we do have a lot of really, really good gun companies and ammo manufacturing, for sure.
There's probably more per capita in my block out here.
It's a good block to live in.
Good neighborhood, yeah. Good neighborhood.
Yeah, to say the least.
So hunting season is coming up. We're approaching. I think bow season's probably open in a lot of places already.
100%.
Ours starts this week or next week. I just remember.
I just killed this bull. I'll find you a quick picture. I killed this bull last week.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about some of your what you got planned for hunting season this year.
I just came off this elk hunt. I don't know if you can see that.
Nice. Oh my gosh, that's huge.
Yeah.
Is that 500?
I wish it was 500.
Your head's like that big. Look how tiny your head is next to it.
Yeah, I'll get you a more realistic picture. You know, you got this setting back a little bit. But elk season's definitely well underway. Archery, there is some.
Oh my gosh.
There is.
How wide is that? Like 7 feet?
I don't know. I haven't taped it, to be honest with you. I haven't scored it, haven't taped it, haven't done anything like that yet. But it's a super good, awesome, mature bull.
Where did you get that?
I shot that in Arizona.
Arizona.
And actually, Arizona, and it was actually a very fortunate early season rifle tag. Oh, that's another great gun company, Altera Arms. That's another one. Altera Arms.
I haven't heard of them. What do they do?
Bolt guns, super high end, you know, super sub MOA bolt guns. But anyway, I was shooting it all.
33 Nosler that you were talking about?
Well,
that in our or shot show.
I wasn't shooting a 33 on that hunt. I was shooting the 6.5 Creedmoor. It's actually, don't tell anybody, but it's my wife's gun.
Did she not know you took it?
No, she knows I took it because she saw me loading it out. But yeah, that 33 Nosler, actually I've hunted with that suppressed. That's the only way to shoot that gun, 100%. Yeah. The unsuppressed version is traumatizing.
The velocity on that round is amazing. Like
better
30,
ballistic,
37, something like that.
Yeah, and a 265 grain AccuBomb. Dude, that is a lightning bolt. When you shoot something with it, it is freaking like lights out.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like literally just Thor just hammered him right between the eyes. That's the only way to shoot that gun. That
Suppressed,
30 suppressed, 100%. So yeah, elk season's underway. Early deer, mule deer, antelope, archery. There's also some antelope rifle hunts that have been going as well.
So do they do draws where in Idaho? Do they have draws for some of those or all of them?
They do draws pretty much for all the premium units and premium areas, and then if you want to get a big buck tag, so to speak, you have to draw, and then they have other areas that are just wide open. And I think that I've asked Fish and Game about some of the rules and why they made the selections, and some of the decision making is, well, we just need a place for people to go, right? So they have, for an example, they have a 2-point hunt that's in this southwest corner of Idaho, and it's 2 points only. And it's that same area is also coveted if you can draw a big buck tag. And I've asked, why do you guys have these 2-point hunts? And they don't have a good answer, except we just need a place to send the people that want to go out and fill their freezer and spend some time, and they didn't draw a tag. So we kind of have a combination of both. Idaho doesn't have a point system like other states do. So if you put in this year, you get a point, and you're going to supposedly have a better chance next year.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually am not completely opposed to that process, because I know like Nevada's a big point state, and I know guys that have gotten max points and they still can't draw. So to answer your question, it's a combination of both. And to get the super premium areas, you need to draw a tag. And I'm always swinging for the fence, man. So I'm putting in for these hunts that have like 0.0006 draw odds. But there are other hunts that are good where you could go in and you could get like a 4% or a 3% or a 2% or something like that. So for the most part, no,
obviously,
no, it's
we
just
have bag limits. There's bag limits.
Yeah, I know. All about it. That's awesome.
Because you've been here, done it.
I've been there, done it, lived there, loved it. In fact, my oldest daughter was born in Fort Campbell, Kentucky, Clarksville.
Oh,
and
Clarksville, Tennessee.
I know, but it's close enough, man. I mean,
so she's a Tennessean. So your daughter's a Tennessean. I knew there was something I liked about you.
Yeah.
Go Ball.
My other daughter was born in Enterprise, Alabama, and they're both 5th generation Idahoans, though, even though they were military brats.
There you go.
Yeah.
So, I was going to ask you about, what do you wear when you go hunting? Which pattern do you wear? But I know it depends on where you're at, but
it more so also depends on the time of year.
That's true.
So these early season hunts, I mean, it was 85, 90 degrees in the middle of the day, and then you're down in the 40s in the morning, and then in the evening it feels like somebody's turned on the air conditioning as soon as the sun starts going down. So the first thing you have to ask yourself is, what are the environmental conditions that we're going to be hunting in? And then the second aspect is, okay, from a terrain perspective, what pattern would fit in best for that environment that you're operating in from a visual acquisition perspective. But first and foremost, and most importantly, is the environmental conditions. And I personally, and pretty much the Cryptek system's built around layering. So layering up and layering down, the ability to put clothes on, or put your rain gear, light packable rain gear on for an hour or 2 hours, take it off after it blows over. Base layers up to mid layers up to outer layers. Back into a different type of hunting, like the whitetail type hunting, where you're gonna get geared up once you get to the stand and crawl up into your stand. I would, and depending on the time of year again, I might hunt with our Vela system, which is if I'm bow hunting, because it's got a fleece on the outside. So I'm also concerned about the noise that I'm going to make in the environment I'm in. I'm not going to be as concerned about wearing a fleece outer layer if I'm rifle hunting. So these are all, different considerations. I don't think that you can boil it down to just one simple answer.
So patterns, I guess. And that's something too, the layering is very important when you're hunting, especially this time of year where you may go in the morning and it's 30 degrees, but then by the afternoon here in Tennessee, it'll be up to 70 again.
Right.
So you definitely need to layer and be able to take those off and shed them as you need. And then rain had been unbelievable here. I don't know about you guys, but we've been just getting hammered with rain.
Yeah, I've seen on the news you guys in the wake of these tropical storms.
Tropical storms, volcanoes erupting.
Yeah,
all kinds of natural disaster. I think somebody's trying to tell us something. I don't know.
Maybe. Yeah.
But let's just do this because I know this is in our listener questions. Let's go to our listener questions now.
Okay.
We got Facebook and we got Instagram. Do you have either of those?
Personal?
That you can access?
That I can access.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
can you access Instagram? Can you access Facebook?
Yeah, I can get on Facebook. I thought
we can review them together.
Okay, hold on a minute. Let me see.
That's fine. And I made a post on our Facebook page and our Instagram page, Talking Lead.
Okay, I will go to it real quick. Using Skype and Facebook, we're still old, man.
That's like MySpace. We were talking earlier.
Yeah.
Facebook. I think Facebook is still pretty popular. I don't use it much. Thank God Instagram automatically posts stuff to Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
And there'll be a big old picture of me and you on there. Back when we were a couple of years younger.
Right.
And I'm gonna start off with Facebook here while you're looking for it. Yep. We got pretty good for such a late post. We got pretty good response here on Instagram and Facebook. See, Kenneth H. McGee says, "What camo pattern works best with night vision? This is the next frontier for me."
Okay, well, first of all, it needs to be wet printed. It's not about the pattern. It's about how the substrate was decorated. So yeah. you want military grade, and what will be classified as either tactical or law enforcement gear. And if that product was wet printed, then it will have some sort of grayscale type camouflage effect under NVGs. You'll still be able to be somewhat clandestine versus heat transfer, straight up hunting gear. It's gonna glow.
So is that to make it more visible under these systems?
Yeah. Okay. There's pigments that are in the inks that are actually specific to the infrared and shortwave infrared spectrums. Yeah. And it used to be that not everybody had access to this type of visually enhancing equipment. Now it's like you can get it off of Amazon. or you can get it off any sporting goods store. So it's become more open. It used to be the only concerns we had were near peer competitors, and that's changed drastically. So it's not as much about the camo as much about how it's printed. And then after that, at the end of the day, there's a lot of information that's out there and debates about what's best and what's not best. I can tell you that Cryptek Highlander is extremely effective under NVGs.
Oh, okay. Effective as it shows up better.
It works better.
Okay, gotcha. And I guess that's what he's talking about, is if he's going to be out hunting for other people, wear this so that he can see them, I guess, and he can be seen. And then on the opposite of that, Aura Alpinap wants to know, looking into camouflage for these systems as well. So if you're trying to hide yourself from a night vision or thermal or infrared, don't guess you would need to do anything different, would you?
Thermal's a completely different discussion point. Thermal, there's been lots of improvements. That's like the magic sauce right now. If you're able to get to a thermal treated uniform, then that's proprietary, probably going to stay at the echelons above reality military level for some time. When we still had FOBs in Afghanistan and Iraq, there was all kinds of stupid creativity that those, the Al-Qaeda and they figured out, we were looking at them through thermal. They were taking down folks at checkpoints that had life preservers on underneath, like these just stacking of, basically making themselves a cooler to penetrate through and defeat the thermal sites, and obviously extremely super cumbersome. It didn't work very well if we took them out, but thermals, that's the next step in near peer force on force breakthroughs. We've got it in infrared.
That's something you guys are working on?
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%. Pre-COVID-19, it was a major focus with actual, programs that were underway. A lot of those funds were diverted into PPE, but yeah, it's a major ongoing deal.
Switch over to Instagram here. Amy Hall Hunter says she's looking forward to this one. Basically, this should be fun. We're having fun, right? We're having a good time. I'm enjoying this.
Yeah, blast.
Giddy Up says, what's one piece of gear that you think it should be applied to that it hasn't yet?
One piece of gear, the camo?
Yeah, I think that's what he's referring to. What's one piece of gear that you think it should be applied to that it hasn't yet? It's everywhere. What are you talking about? It's on everything.
Yeah, there's been not one piece of gear, I guess, obviously probably of the craziest shit that I've ever seen done that has ripped has been, Crocs was one of them. Crocs footwear. Yeah, they crushed it. And then Groove Life rings, these rubber rings so that you get your finger caught on a screw and you don't rip your finger off.
I don't. What is that?
Groove Life rings. They're like a rubber.
Are you seeing my screen or are you seeing me right now?
I'm seeing you.
Okay. I didn't know if I was still sharing my screen or not.
But yeah, to answer his question is I don't think there's one piece of specific gear out there that I'm like scratching my head going, crap, why isn't Cryptek on that?
Well, on our SHOT Show interview that we did, lingerie was one thing that
yeah,
you're not going down that road with it. So.
Dude, Victoria's Secrets wants to cut a license with Cryptek. Entertain it.
Are you serious? Do it.
said if they did.
Oh, if they did, you do it? Okay.
I wouldn't slam the door on those guys. I might have to go to some of the and ensure that it's done correctly.
Yeah. Let's see. Giddy Up says, no, we just read Giddy Up. Austin Whalen says a good tiger stripe camo would be cool. Have y'all played around with that? I think
yeah,
have
we kind of hit on that a little bit. So we used tiger stripe is baked into the Obscura, the new Obscura patterns. Yeah. And to his point, again, tiger stripe's probably one of the most effective and most heavily used camouflage patterns in existence. There are some challenges when you go straight tiger stripe. When you want an omnidirectional camo when you're putting it on fabric, so no matter how it gets cut and it gets sewn together, it all flows. And in some of the tiger stripe variants, you have to cut it all a certain way, which slows down the manufacturing process, and also can cause issues if somebody had a toddy and decided to make their uniform cuts and didn't do it right. So
let's see. Jonathan Gallup, what's your favorite camo pattern and why is it chocolate chip dessert? I don't get that. Is that an inside joke?
He might be referring to chocolate chip, which was the name that the military used for the camouflage uniforms that we went into Iraq, OIF-1, and then also used in OEF. And we still had woodland body armor. So we looked like
mismatched.
Yeah. I'm sure that's what he's talking about, chocolate chip. I don't personally have a camo outside of Cryptek that I like more than our own. So the answer is Cryptek's my favorite camo.
I think they probably which pattern or which
Highlander.
Highlander.
Highlander and Obscura Transitional are probably two of the most effective camo patterns ever developed, and those are both what's called transitional patterns. So in the tactical industry, we look at the world in three different environments. You look at it as an arid desert environment, you look at a woodland jungle environment, and then everything in between is considered transitional. And 70% of the globe is considered a transitional environment, and the majority of North America and the United States is considered transitional.
Now, you'd mentioned a couple of your patterns that you've got that seem more like aquatic kind of camo.
That's lifestyle is what it is.
Is that much more lifestyle?
You have the same exact camo pattern. Like, for example, if you look at Pontus or Neptune, there was a program, a wetsuit program that was a military inspiration. Those were throwaways. They weren't selected, but you just ultimately those bright camo patterns are lifestyle. I mean, maybe there's use with your fly fishing for super spooky trout, but for the most part, it's all a lifestyle piece.
No shark camo or anything like that that'll camo you from sharks? I'm being facetious.
Dude, I did get a phone call from a guy that was educated, and he was from a university in Chicago, and this was years ago. And I think he was dead up serious, and he asked me if zombies could see Cryptek camo. And my response to him was, as far as we know, based on our testing, no, zombies cannot see Cryptek camo.
That's awesome. I love that. That kind of ties in with this question that I saw about color blindness. Where did that go? Here it is. Mustang Perry. Is it true that colorblind people can see camo in the environment easier than most? You know anything about that?
I don't think that it depends on the environment and what I think color blindness relates to two primary colors, green and red. And so I'm not a subject matter expert on color blindness, but I don't think that they have a higher, better advantage of a naked eye visual acquisition of somebody that's trying to be
graphic
consistent.
that you're leaving out of your market research there.
Yeah. Now,
Colorblind.
Now there is major science and belief that undulants see in grayscale. So like deer, and then you have what we consider tier 1 undulants, which are species that have wicked good eyesight, i.e. antelope, sheep would be another one. Probably on the lowest end of that, the lowest undulant visual acquisition big game species would be a moose. So animals do see differently than we do. And, you know, there is some science that's proven around staying hidden from animals. Like you don't want to use IR brighteners in your laundry detergent and that type of stuff. Yeah. But yeah, nothing with regards to color blindness.
This question kind of goes along to what you were just saying. Sack Archer says, since deer are essentially colorblind, unable to see purple, pink, red, and orange, why don't camo companies incorporate more into their patterns, especially for certain states where they are Nazis in the amount of orange required during rifle season? I get it for duck hunters; those suckers flare at everything.
We have done that. So if you look at our Inferno pattern, it is the Cryptek camo on high vis blaze orange. Some states require uninterrupted certain square inches of high vis bright orange, and you're not able. Exactly. So to answer your last,
yeah. So they do have, I guess maybe what he's saying too is just not like as full on orange as that, but have some orange in with, like if you took one of your other patterns, let's say Typhon, let's take Typhon.
Yeah.
Come up. And you were to throw some orange accents in there with that.
Well, I'll tell you what, you look up on your screen, Cryptek Loki, Obscura Loki.
We've got a question about that. I saw that. I thought that was a made up something. So you do have, is that on your website or?
I don't know if we have it on our website. We don't actually carry it, but we had one of our associates, a licensee, a fishing company called Hook, that requested this specifically for their use, and they have done a collection around it, and it's nothing short of absolute like tie-dye. Like if I went down to the park, the hippies.
This is surfer, dude. This is surfer camo.
So check this out, Lefty. That camo pattern is the exact same pattern as the Obscura Transitional, the Obscura Grom, and the Obscura Nox that we do have on our site, with these different colorways plugged into it. So if you would have asked me even 2 years ago, would we ever do, you know, tie-dye rainbow camo, I would have said no. But when you had a pretty significant and prominent brand like Hook come to you and say, hey, can you do this for us? And we go, if you want.
Dig that. I like it, man. I would wear that to the beach.
Yeah, well, maybe you're a listener there, wear it whitetail hunting and see how it works out. It'd probably work out just fine.
There you go. Absolutely. So is this the only place you can get it? Is at Hook?
Yeah, unless it's a vinyl program to wrap your car or something like that. We don't carry any of it because it's just so obnoxious. It's a little off. It's a little off voice, but it's definitely vibrant. The European
definitely falls into your lifestyle.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, here's a car right here.
Right.
Talking about wraps.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, I would totally wear a button-up shirt with that pattern on it.
You would look good in it too.
I'm notorious for wearing ugly shirts, like shirts that have all these wild patterns and stuff on them.
Imagine
I would wear that next party, your next Cryptek party.
A nice pearl snap, collared,
yeah,
going out Nashville, doing little. Right.
I'm digging. I mean, should I be ashamed?
No.
Look at that, man. It's Cryptek. I'm digging it. That's my new favorite Cryptek. I'm sorry. You're never going to speak to me again, are you?
No, I'm not.
See, I scuba dive too.
I should have known. I shouldn't have showed it to you.
I know. I'm loving it now.
It's fucked up.
All right, I'm going to move on from that. Here's one about he thinks you've changed the color. Let's see. Where is it? Why is Mandrake not as green as it once was? Or is my gear just faded? Casey Loftus.
It depends on the substrate that it's on. Sometimes one of the challenges that you have is when you have different types of fabrics, or what we call graige. Graige is the term that's used for just white fabric that has been woven that's going to be specific into a collection. And to keep the collection dress, where everything looks exactly the same as you have different fabrics is very challenging. Now, I can tell you that the Mandrake that's in the hunting collection that is done with heat transfer paper is definitely not as what he's probably referring to as green as the wet printed military grade fabric items. And it's just a constraint of the technologies where we are as a people and in terms of decorating the fabrics.
Gotcha.
Now,
it could be faded too.
It could be. Normally, I've seen the majority of any fading issues are on items that are going to be exposed for long durations in the sun and were digitally printed. That printing method does not hold up to UV rays. So, like we've done some float tubes, and they've faded. We've also seen some digitally printed pack fabrics fade faster than what we would want. The color fastness just isn't there. But if your listener has apparel that he purchased and he's comparing it to something else, he's got to look at the fabric types and also understand the difference between digital print and wet print. And if you put two Cryptek Highlander pieces together and you compare the digital print, or the heat transfer print rather, I said digital, but heat transfer print to the military grade wet print, you'll see a difference there as well.
Makes sense. I found that question that they were asking about the Loki. Rayo Shields, what was the inspiration behind the Cryptek Loki that you talked about? Definitely like the Cryptek Highlander and Obscura.
Yeah, again, Loki was a specific request from the Hook brand and color Pantones that they actually provided. So if you go and buy into that collection, you might find a board short that's just the red. It's all solid red, but it matches the red that they wanted to have in the shirt. in the Loki pattern.
Gotcha. Lockvogel 00, why Cryptek style patterns over, like, say, Realtree or Mossy Oak? And there's another question that's kind of similar to that. Sack Archer, Digi versus Cryptek versus traditional versus Tiger versus solid. Is one head and shoulders above the rest, or does each have their place? I think those kind of tie in together, those questions.
Well, the hunting camo, the traditional legacy Realtree / Mossy Oak. First of all, the designs that they put out really are at what I call 48 inches or shelf appeal. And for actual use, once you start to wear some of those sticks and leaves and you start to get past 20 meters, then you start to blob, and meaning you become a solid versus you're broken up. Their macro and micro patterns are built off of shelf appeal versus off of actual functionality. So you would never see Realtree or Mossy Oak or sticks and leaves on the battlefield. You'd never see a tier 1 sniper and his spotter wearing sticks and leaves because of what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
There's also not wet print sticks and leaves to my example, so you'd be at risk from infrared, shortwave infrared. But you would see hunting camo used, or correction, tactical military camo used in the hunting market. So it's like this one, it only flows one way. It doesn't go uphill, it only goes downhill. And so there is a major difference between the classical sticks and leaves, and we came in and completely disrupted that market. We came in and absolutely just, started a forest fire in Realtree and Mossy Oak. And if you look now, they do have lifestyle camo patterns that were brought in wake of our success, and primarily in the fishing market. One of them has a camo pattern. It looks like somebody took a screenshot of a top of a swimming pool. It's just a few waves, right? And then they've got some other stuff. So we came in, disrupted that market. Those guys pivoted out of their classical sticks and leaves and started to do some more lifestyle shit, whereas our stuff was already haphazardly and by accident landing in lifestyle and causing that disruption. I don't know if that answers. There's like 3 or 4 other parts to that, but there is a major difference.
I think basically it's each one has its place.
Yeah,
time and place each one.
Well, the reason why we were accelerated into multicam within the U.S. military is because Spec Ops was using multicam, and the rest of the conventional force was using ACS. And ACS was a terrible, terrible daytime visual acquisition. You looked like the only place it worked was in a gravel parking lot if you were laying down on it. And so conventional forces were working with non-conventional forces. They saw how well multicam was working, and there were some complaints. A congressional mom made a complaint to her buddy who is a congressman from whatever state, and boom, this mass decision was made to move entire U.S. conventional military into multicam, which cost taxpayers hundreds of millions of excess dollars in royalties from Cry Precision and multicam. That's the primary reason why there was the U.S. Army camo improvement effort. The point of that is that you have to take into consideration the terrain you're going in and the competitor you're against. Whether it's a tier 1 undulant, deer, elk, sheep, antelope, or you're going against, what's the end state? What are you trying to accomplish? Are you trying to walk down the street and walk into a restaurant and everybody look at you and go, oh, that guy's an outdoorsman, or that guy's a shooter? Are you wearing it because you want to identify with that? That's a psychological aspect of it. That's an important spectrum when you talk about camouflage. But the most important true application is functionality. That's the most important. Does this work? Is it going to keep me concealed? And that's the end state. Now, we found functionality and lifestyle by accident, but ultimately, really, it depends on the environment you're going in. That's the reason why the government requested 3 camo patterns because of those 3 different environments, the major swags of ground.
Did you say 3?
I did. Hopefully.
That's wrong. That's so wrong.
Yeah, an extremist.
Yeah.
But arid desert, jungle woodland, and transitional. So a lot of it just depends on where you're operating at and what you're going to do.
If you could just have one pattern out of all the ones that you have for every environment, let's just say you just had to get something, you had to go, and you were going to be going around the world, which one would you pick? If you just had one that you could use.
Okay, can I ask a question to the question?
Yeah.
What am I going to be doing? Am I hunting or am I going?
Surviving.
Surviving. Okay.
You're surviving.
Well, it's Highlander. I would have Cryptek Highlander.
Good answer. Is that your original?
It's one of the original patterns tested. Yeah.
Let's see. Did you make it on Facebook or Instagram? I think I've read most of them there. So.
Oh, I started to, but no, I didn't.
Yeah, that's fine. I think I got most of the questions. A lot of them are redundant. So.
Okay.
Thanks to everybody, all you lead heads, for posting your questions for Butch on Facebook and Instagram. I don't think I got it. Let me make sure I didn't get any emails. Sometimes they'll email me too. I just didn't give them enough time this time. Again, sorry for the short post, guys. But if you have additional questions for Butch, you can shoot me an email, talkinglead@gmail.com, and I'll send those over to him and try to get your questions answered. But to reward you guys for your questions and taking part and participating, we like to reward our listeners here, Butch.
Nice.
Cryptek has set up a nice discount code for you lead heads. And if you go to their website and you use the code LEADHEAD, all caps, LEADHEAD, all caps, you're going to get a nice 10% off any of the Cryptek branded products. And it doesn't apply to any of their partnership products that they have. So just the Cryptek branded products. I think I said that right. Did I say that right?
Yeah, it sounds good.
I was trying to find her email that she had sent me here. Let me make sure I get it right. See, that was from Maddie, I believe. That is a female?
Yeah, Maddie.
Okay. Yeah, so it says one-time use only includes Cryptek branded products and excluded licensee products. So there you go. That's her words exactly. So there you go. Go take advantage of that. Go to their website. It's Cryptek.com, right?
Kryptek.com.
.com. And there's a lot of products that they have there. Like you said, you guys are an apparel company now. You're making your own apparel. This isn't just you're putting your pattern on somebody else's stuff. This is your own stuff. Talk about that.
Well, we're a hybrid, and we have what we call discretionary licensing. So somebody comes to us and wants to decorate something with our camo, we may not go through with it if it's going to compete with a other strategic partner that we already have or some of our own gear. Like I've turned down various programs that could be very meaningful in apparel that wanted to use Cryptek camo, but then we'd be running up against it. And we've actually done some programs. I've stubbed my toe a time or two, but yeah, the Cryptek apparel itself is well thought out. There's enormous amount of effort and energy. It's really superior quality gear. We'll put it up against anybody else in the market. And you got to strip the paint job off. It's just about super good quality construction, manufacturing, and good componentry and fabrics. But yeah, we do have a vast Cryptek collection from super cold weather to super warm weather to in between lifestyle. Yeah, quite a broad spectrum.
Got packs and bags, gun cases.
Right.
Sleeping bags yours, or those
those are ours.
Collaboration. Those are yours. So you're doing sleeping bags also.
No camo on them either. Yeah, those actually just launched here like a couple weeks ago. They're super badass.
What got you into doing those?
Being cold.
Being cold and
other sleeping bags.
Wanting a better sleeping bag.
Right.
It's called Kilsia.
Yes.
Kilsia. Did I say that right?
You did.
And it's a 0 degree, and they've got a 15-degree bags, 2 different bags.
Right.
Mummy style. I like that.
Lots of accessories, gloves. The gun case program's probably one of our more successful programs. You got range bags as well. Pistol mats. So they're really good. Real nice.
How long have you been doing the gun cases?
Been doing them for a while, quite a while.
It's been in your repertoire for a minute.
Yeah.
There they are. Yeah, those are some. You got a bow cases.
100%. Those are super sweet too.
And I guess certain things are available in certain patterns, or are all your things available with all your patterns?
No, not everything. Not every camo pattern is on every piece. And in some collections, it's like, for example, altitude. You can't get an altitude to car jacket in Highlander. It's, so it's vast. There's a lot of camo patterns, but then there's also a lot of offerings with regards to various weights of jackets, pants, rain gear, base layers, mid layers, and that type of thing.
Gotcha. So go check them out. Leadheads, Cryptek, Kryptek, and use the code LEADHEAD, all caps. One time you sell it, you're going to get 10% off. So load up, because Christmas is coming. It's just around the corner. So let's make some great gifts. And if you want to send me something, you can send me some of this stuff. I wear a large 34 pant. And the footwear, are you guys doing your footwear now? I know when we talked before, is there an Italian company that you were collaborating with? Are you doing your own footwear now?
No, we haven't taken that on. We still have licensees that we're working with. We just finished a new one that's launching, I think, anytime, like this week or next week. Carolina Boots, and their parent company's H.H. Brown, and there's some waterproof muck boots that are really super sweet and sick with regards to like whitetail hunting, all the way down to cowboy boots and some other stuff. So what I felt was that it was easier for us to align ourselves with footwear companies that we would wear, that we'd get behind, versus stretching our resources into a very inventory extensive industry. You have to have a lot of sizes and carry a lot of inventory to be in the footwear program.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah.
So we're gonna pick a winner from all the people that participated. I'm gonna give away. I had it here somewhere, and it's their choice. They can have. Here they are. I've got some Geisley triggers. I've got one for an AR, one for an AK. And the winner will get to have their choice. They can pick AK or AR on the ALG triggers. And Butch, I'm going to let you pick the winner from all of our questions that we had there. Which was your favorite question?
I thought the guy was pretty clever that threw in, what's your favorite camo pattern and why is it chocolate chip desert?
Okay. Let's see who that was. I don't remember who asked that. That was on Facebook.
Jonathan Gallup.
Giddy up. There you go. Jonathan Gallup.
Giddy up Gallup.
What's your favorite camo pattern? Why is it chocolate chip desert? You are the winner. Shoot me a email, talkinglead@gmail.com, and tell me that you won the trigger on the Butch episode here, and tell me if you want AR, if you want AK. And these are really nice triggers. These are like they're high end.
He's probably going to want the AK, because if he was in Desert Storm and knows about chocolate chip, he probably had a few in his duffel bag when he came home.
Well, we do this this series, Butch, called the Talking Lead AK Corner. We do it once a month, and we just talk AKs, AK-47s. That's what the whole episode's about. So, and I know Giddy Up listens to that, and I think he's got some, but that's our logo for the Talking Lead AK Corner there. You can see that.
You still on your screen?
Oh, am I sharing?
Yeah.
Good thing I didn't put up my nudie pics, huh?
Right.
There we go. So that's our AK Corner logo.
Nice.
And these are on Mission First dump trays. Mission First Tactical makes these for us.
Yeah.
And you guys can go and order those at missionfirsttactical.com and use the code LEADHEAD lowercase. You get 20% off anything at Mission First. They make AR accessories, holsters, all kinds of cool stuff there. And then they've got our logoed items there too at Mission First Tactical. Go check them out and support all our sponsors. seal1.com. Use the code LEADHEAD. You get 25% off any of their CLP products there. Nemo Arms, we talked about earlier. Awesome sponsors there up in Idaho. And use the code TL10. You're going to get 10% off anything at Nemo Arms. That includes their firearms, which is a great offering there. You don't hear anybody discounting their firearms these days. And those are high quality, high end firearms, guys. You heard me talk about their shotguns. Have you shot their shotguns?
Yes.
Those are heirloom quality, beautiful shotguns. They've got over-under shotguns. Love them.
They're really nice.
Absolutely beautiful. Then we were talking earlier, 1776 United for the Talking Lead apparel, our traditional logoed items. Use Talking Lead at 1776 United. You're going to get 20% off there. Any of the products that they have there, including the Talking Lead logoed items. Occam Lube, OccamLube.com. They have great delivery methods for your lubrication products. You can go, and they've got their own greases and whatnot now too at Occam Lube. Check them out, OccamLube.com. And their code is LEADHEAD. See what my pattern is here? I keep it LEADHEAD across the board. It's easier for me to remember and for them. But it's all caps like at Cryptek. You're going to get 10% off there.
It's a password for your computer, Leadhead.
You'd think, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
I'm easy to hack. And then, of course, our buddies at Keltec, KeltecWeapons.com. Unfortunately, we didn't get to do the NRA this year, Butch. We were looking forward to that. We're going to be set up at Keltec's booth, but that didn't happen. But we're in talks. I think we're going to go down to Cocoa Beach and take the studio there and do a tour of their factory and record the show from there. So we're in works with that. And then we're also talking about, Butch, this might be something you guys might be interested in. We're going to do a range and ride. And what that's going to be is, if you got motorcycles, you're into motorcycles, because we did an episode on motorcycles a while back. Ride your bike to the range. Keltec will be set up there. We might have some other of our friends of the show and companies set up. And you get to shoot their guns, ride your bikes in, and then we might set up like a little ride afterwards to go somewhere and do something. We'll have food and all that. So that's something that conceptually right now is in the works.
That's cool. Yeah.
That should be a good time. But go show all our sponsors love, show our guests love, go to their websites, go to their Instagrams, let them know you heard them here and how much you appreciate everything that they do for not only our 2A community, but as Cryptek is doing for our outdoor and conservation as well. I appreciate everything that you guys are doing for that, Butch. Giving back, that's what it's about.
Right, yeah, 100%. We want our children and our grandchildren's grandchildren to be able to enjoy the luxuries we have across the hunting, but also, I mean, in this current administration, across everything, right?
our freedom of speech is heavily under attack right now, and
100%.
we have to use our voices to combat that. So don't be afraid to voice your opinions, how you feel about things. Don't let them squat you out. Speak up.
Absolutely.
So Butch, I do the sign off, and I don't know if we did it at SHOT Show or not. I don't think we did. But I'll say, and as always, leadheads, keep your loved ones close. And my guest will say, and your firearms closer. And then put a little spin on it with their company. Now, we were going to do a fact to fight the myth. Did you have a fact to fight the myth? I forgot about that.
I wasn't sure exactly where you wanted to go with it.
It's just kind of like a pet peeve or something, maybe something in the camo world or industry that people have a misconception about that you can clear up with, no, it's actually like this instead of that. If you don't, that's fine. I can do it and I can edit it in.
I'd go back to the guy that asked about, the advantage of sticks and leaves and the popularity with those legacy camo patterns that are, I consider grandpa's camo.
Yeah.
There's a difference. And I think that, that myth is, there's a huge difference, but it depends on the application.
Yeah, that's a good one. I'll go back and edit that in. All right, lead heads, that does it for another episode of the Talking Lead Podcast. Appreciate you tuning in. Until next week, as always, keep your loved ones close.
And your firearms closer and loaded and ready to go.
Perfect. Okay. I don't know if you'll throw any Cryptek things in there.
Well, and they're decorated. Your firearms are decorated in Cryptek.
Whether it's hydro dipped or Duracoated, huh?
Hydro dipped, Duracoated, or vinyl wrap.
Vinyl wrap.
Cerakote film. Yeah,
really. We need to talk about wrapping the lead sled with some Cryptek. Get that multicam off there. Let's put some Cryptek in there.
We can do stuff like that, dude. Let me know.